Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Have you always wanted more and wondered what went wrong in your life? Have you gotten mad at yourself because you feel stuck and you haven't done the things that you dream of doing to make yourself happier? Well, if so, please stay tuned because I am very delighted to introduce my guest to you, Vincent Genna, who wrote the book, The Secret That's Holding You Back. Now, before I invite you to speak, Mr. Vincent Genna, I just want to tell people that you are a rare breed of person because you have a master's in social work and you are a psychic therapist and a medium. So this is just such an unusual combination. I'm so eager to learn about the extra twist that you give to therapy, Vincent Genna. So welcome to Just Relationships.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Duffy, thank you for inviting me to Just Relationships, because that's really what it's all about, is relationships with yourself and with everyone else.
Yeah, and that's why I named the show Just Relationships. Thanks for picking up on that, Vincent.
Absolutely.
So, we have this term, The Secret, famous movie. We have the law of attraction. And I know that you espouse that, and you are an expert on this. So the secret that's holding you back. What is the secret, Vincent Genna?
Oh, I can't tell you that yet. It's a secret. No, actually, Dr. Duffy, it's the reason why it's a secret is because the brain does that. It's really interesting because all the clients that I deal with and the people that I've been dealing with for the past 40 years, I've been doing this now, they all have the similar issues. And they're coming into this new age, new thought information about things like the law of attraction, that you can manifest, that you can create all you want. And before that became in more conscious awareness to the public, it was all the motivational speakers who used to tell you that you're capable of going after your dreams and you're capable of creating anything because of the human spirit. Well, that human spirit is actually the soul and the fact that we are connected to a source and a power that allows us to create all we want. So you have all of these people now with this new information. And back in the old days, they had that information and they keep trying to apply it. And they go to classes and they read all these books and they take lectures online now, all of that. And they still end up saying, God, it's not working. Why isn't it working? Which was originally the title of my book until my editor and I decided that we were going to change that a bit. But people aren't getting the outcomes they want, Dr. Duffy. More importantly, they're not getting the outcomes they're promised. And they don't understand that there is a brain anomaly that is actually causing that. Okay. So the two highest functions of the brain is one, to keep us alive, two, to protect us in order to keep us alive. So the highest, of course, is keeping us alive. So how does it protect us then to keep us alive? Well, we know physically, for example, when we had the coronavirus, when that was going around and it's still going around, right? One of the symptoms was a fever. Well, it wasn't the coronavirus that causes the fever, nor does any virus cause the fever. Your brain does intentionally to raise your body temperature to a degree that is unlivable for the bacteria or the virus that's inside of you. Okay, so that's how it protects us. One of the ways it protects us physically. But what happens when you have emotional pains? What happens when you're growing up and you're receiving these negative messages from your environment, from your parents, from the adults in your life? Right? In my book, I say that your first set of messages, which can be maladaptive or a combination, are harbored in what I call the environment-made mind. And why do I call it the environment-made mind? It's because you're young, we're children, we just absorb. We're like sponges absorbing. And so the environment creates this part of the mind that divides to hold all those maladaptive beliefs. Another term for them are the I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not lovable enough, I'm not deserving enough, I'm not worthy enough, whatever. So those are now harbored in that portion of our brains and minds. And our brain holds on to everything forever, which means we are an accumulation of our lifetime. So those maladaptive beliefs are inside of you. And as we're growing up, we're having to deal with them and hear them. But the brain doesn't like feeling bad. So it has to protect us in order for us to function on a daily basis. When I went to school and as a psychotherapist, we learned the concept even better about coping mechanisms, coping skills. And it was important as a psychotherapist to help our clients develop functional coping mechanisms. Well, the problem is those coping mechanisms are the things that actually hide what you're really believing about yourself. So instead of walking around saying, well, I'm not good enough, your brain will create a new set of beliefs that will shield you and protect you from your old set. So now you're walking around thinking it's somebody else's fault. It's the environment. It's the government. It's the economy. It's my neighbor next door. It's my partner. It's my boss. It's not me. All these other beliefs come out. So the secret is the fact that you don't believe what you think you believe. You are walking around thinking that you believe either that you're good enough and that you're lovable enough, but the outcome isn't turning out that way because that's not what you really believe. So that was a long way of getting around the concept and understanding that that is what the secret is inside of you. You are shielding yourself from the beliefs that are actually manifesting your life.
So, Vincent Genna, thank you. Author of The Secret That's Holding You Back. It seems to me as a psychotherapist that my patients know this. They will tell me all the time, I'm not smart enough, I can't do it, inadequate, all of these things. I understand that people kind of lie to themselves and you distinguish between the subconscious and the unconscious, all such fascinating things, Vincent Genna. But I just want to make sure we're on the same page with this part. I get that people make excuses and they say it's everybody but themselves. And you're saying that subconsciously, well, you make a connection between the subconscious mind and the environmentally made mind.
Right. That's correct.
So tell us more about that.
Okay. So remember one thing about you and I, and I don't do so much psychotherapy work anymore, not a weekly job. I refer my clients that need something like that to you. The psychic part lets me get to the core real quick.
Right.
But people come to us whose defense mechanisms aren't working. And so that's why they're able to recognize those internal feelings of I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. That's what makes them depressed, is that's in their conscious mind now, which is only 2 to 5% of the entire mind, right? 95 to 98% of the human mind is in unconscious awareness. So when people are walking around thinking they know what they think and they feel, they don't. You have no idea what's going on in that portion of the mind. This is why I wrote that book. And this is why you even go to psychotherapy, to bring that to a conscious level. But you see, if you don't, the average person that's walking around, Dr. Duffy, is not aware of those internal feelings that first started for them. They're not aware. So here they are, they're adults, however old they are, they decide that they want a relationship now. And so they're mustering up the energy. This is the law of attraction works. You create an energy with your desire and your focus, right? And your intention. So I want a love, right? But before that energy is released from you and hits the power, the force, whatever you want to call it, George Lucas called it the Force in Star Wars. That actually was a story. He's very spiritual and metaphysical. That was a story about us and our relationship with that force, that power. And so we send that energy out into the universe, but before it leaves us, that little voice deep down inside in the unconscious mind, the little Vinny, the little, Duffy, the little person out there turns around and says, yeah, but you're not lovable. It's not going to work. You're not going to get anybody who's good enough. But we don't hear that voice because the protective mind has shielded us from hearing it. Okay. So why that matters? Because now that's the energy that's released from you. It goes out and now you attract somebody. And in the beginning, it seems really good. Now, like attracts like, which is an opposite of what everybody thinks. Opposites do not attract. Personality styles can be opposite, but the cores will be the same. So if you don't believe you're lovable, you are going to attract somebody who doesn't believe he or she is lovable. Now you get these two people together and their emotional needs were not met as a child. So they're seeking them from each other. But the inner unconscious belief is this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. And that child is still speaking to this person and going, oh, it looks good. It's nice, but you're going to ruin it. You're going to sabotage it. And eventually you start seeing the negative coming out in the relationship. Each person is acting differently. Bam, the relationship ends. But it's always because it's the other person, it's them. But here's the thing. I work with my clients. I have dealt with thousands of clients all over the world in the 40 years that I've been doing this. Plus my research in psychology and in the metaphysical and the spiritual fields has shown me what these people are really believing about themselves and why it's so important to understand that. So I have to burst their bubble, that security, that protective layer, the defense mechanisms. And in my book, I call that portion of the mind that holds the defense mechanisms the adult-made mind. The reason why I even separated, Dr. Duffy, the parts of the mind into 5 different compartments rather than 3 is because our brains are much more complicated than that. And it just gives people a way of viewing. It's kind of like a compartment, just like we compartmentalize our lives to start with, because humans like to do that, right? And so I feel the brain will do that naturally. So all of those defense mechanisms are going to be held somewhere. And I say it's in the adult-made mind, which is the closest to the subconscious mind. That subconscious mind's the automatic part, as you know. It's now training us on how we're going to respond automatically. So in that defense mechanism is where we will come up with that new set of beliefs. So if the relationship falls apart, you're not saying and you're not hearing little you say, oh, I'm not lovable. See, I told you it wasn't going to work out. What you're hearing instead is, oh, he's abusive. She doesn't, meet my emotional needs. She's selfish. He's thoughtless. He's emotionally clogged and closed down. All these excuses come out about somebody else when in fact, you helped to manifest the breakup of that relationship because it was what you were unconsciously expecting. And that unconsciously expecting. And unconscious is where you're connected to the law of attraction. That's why the unconscious mind is so important and so important to deal with. That power is connected there, not at the unconscious, at the conscious level. People have to understand that.
Yes, and I think it is so fascinating, Vincent Genna. I'm thinking about a couple that I'm working with, married for 30 plus years and don't have intimacy and want so much intimacy, emotional, sexual intimacy. And what I have proposed to them is that they have an implicit contract, both of them, not to be intimate, right? That they ostensibly will say, well, I want a more intimate relationship with you, but they entered into this subconscious contract. Let me find someone who doesn't really want to be intimate because I don't really want to be intimate.
Right. And the reason they wouldn't,
and they're shocked to hear this.
Yes, it stops them. But what they have to realize is, like, and you realize, the reason why they don't want to be intimate is because they don't feel lovable enough. They're afraid that if they are intimate, the other person's not going to like it anyway, because, see, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. If we were trained, the problem in the world today is the same problem as it was for a long time. Children are not raised. Their emotional needs are not met because of whatever the societal issues have been. It gets passed down from generation to generation. When I get clients saying, oh, yeah, but everybody has dysfunctional families. Everybody. Yes, but that doesn't mean it hurts less because your neighbor's going through the same thing. No, exactly. It's going to cause the problem the same way for each individual. So if you're not nurtured and attended to and made to believe that you are lovable, you're wonderful, you're unlimited, you can go after your dreams, we get so much correction while we're growing up. People don't understand how children translate that. And they don't care about the childhood part because they think, well, once you're an adult, you'll be fine. You'll work things out. No. I mean, how many times are you working with clients that they're reliving their early stories over and over and over? The abuse of their parents not being there, being divorced, being married to abusive step-parents, the parents not raising them at all. It is story after story after story. And so now people are walking around expecting that if they do not heal that inner part, if they do not reparent that inner child and retrain that child, they're going to be harboring those hurts, and those scars are going to be influencing them for the rest of their lives. And so that is the most important part. When I do couple therapy, it's interesting that you say that you entered into this contract. To me, the best kind of couple therapy is individual healing work, but doing it as a partnership. My wife and I have been together for 49 years, married going on to 45 years this year coming up, okay? As soon as this spiritual awakening happened to me and we gained some insight from the information that was coming out, we started to do self-growth, self-healing work, but we did it as a partnership. We would read a book together, like this wonderful one, The Secret That's Holding You Back. I wish we had that back then. And we read it together and we would work and talk about it. We would watch an inspirational movie together and then we would talk about it. We would go to a lecture together and we would talk about it. Couples are not doing that. They're doing their own thing. They have their own interests, and there's nothing wrong in you liking bowling and your husband liking fishing. There's nothing wrong with that. But the whole reason why you get married is not just to have somebody to help you pay the bills. It's to have somebody to help you grow even more as spiritual beings. We are complete beings. We do not need another person to complete who we are. But the more intimate the relationship, the deeper we can go with somebody, the more we discover about ourselves and our own abilities. And so when you have a couple that doesn't want to go to that level and degree of intimacy, it's because they are afraid to find out that their greatest fears about themselves are true. That's why even you and I know that's one of the major reasons why people who need or could benefit from counseling don't go, because they're so afraid to get to that level, that environment-made mind level that I talk about in the book that's harboring all those negative beliefs. They don't know that there's another level underneath there that their soul resides in that tells them how magnificent and perfect they are. They think they're going to stop at the level that says you aren't good enough, you aren't worthy. And they're so afraid to get there, they would rather live with their defense mechanisms than really gain the truth about themselves. But that's why they don't get to create the lives they want, because the manifesting power is beneath that surface, and they have to get there to change the beliefs, to change the outcome. Whatever their lives are looking like right now is a direct mirror of the beliefs they have about themselves. And that's why things are lacking in their lives, because the positive, strong beliefs about themselves are also lacking.
So what we believe about ourselves manifests, and the trick is to figure out what it is we really believe about ourselves under the surface.
Yes.
And when I have a lot of people who, again, believe they're unlovable, and you're saying these are just more advanced people who seek therapy?
Yep. They actually are in a great place when they seek out therapy. And we know that one of the things that we learned right away, when a client even makes an appointment for counseling, they already start feeling a little bit better because they're taking a self-love step. They're saying, I care about myself. And so they want to do that more. Really, yes, it's very important. We got to work with the people whose defense mechanisms are so weak that they can't, be productive in their lives. However, that doesn't mean the people that are walking out there and not seeking out counseling are really functional, because there's actually more people in the world who could use counseling and are not going than there are people who are finally acknowledging to themselves that they could use some counseling that are going. And that's why the world is so messed up. All the people, well, we just can use our country. Look at what's been going on the past couple of years. Look at the anger, the resentment, the hatred that's coming out. That is the Cain and Abel story from the Old Testament. That's all the stories in the Old Testament are actually metaphysical, metaphoric stories for us to learn something. They're just not about main characters, actually. It's about who we can be. And the Cain and Abel story is perfect as to what's going on right now. When you are attached to your higher self and you believe in yourself and you believe that you're part of something greater, you feel attended to, you feel loved, you feel lovable, you feel happy, you feel joyous, you feel kind, you feel like Abel did. All right, which is, for those who aren't familiar with the stories of the Bible, Cain and Abel were supposedly Adam and Eve's children. Okay, and Cain came out first, Abel came out second. So if you feel attached and you remember and you're happy about yourself and love yourself, you feel and act like Abel did, a really nice guy. Okay, so Cain was jealous of his brother because he was not attached to that higher source. He forgot who he was. And so when you forget who you are as a magnificent divine being, all right, you feel abandoned, you feel neglected, and then you begin to feel resentful and angry and enraged. And that portion of you that feels that way can overpower the good side of you and kill off that good side so that you're just walking around with that angry, hateful side, because that is a defense mechanism. Whenever you lash out at somebody else, it's because you're lashing out at yourself first. And it actually is easier to be angry and less painful to be angry with somebody on the outside than it is to be angry with yourself. And so that's why we project. It's one of those defense mechanisms that Freud talked about, right? Projection. You project your own inner angers and hatred onto somebody else. And that is what you're seeing. You're seeing some of the people in the United States, right? Their inner child, their EMMs, their AMMs have developed such defense mechanisms. I'll hate you instead of hating me. They despise themselves. And you can actually see the degree that they hate themselves to the degree that they're lashing out. It's an actual barometer. So the more you despise yourself, the more you're going to lash out and hurt somebody else, or If you're not that type of person, you will hurt and harm yourself, either physically, emotionally, even with your health. You'll take it out on yourself and you'll implode instead of exploding. But that's what we're seeing in the world today, is all these hurt people.
And as we know, Vincent Genna, hurt people hurt people. So
Absolutely.
The secret that's holding you back. And I would love people to kind of visualize a triangle. It may be too much to ask of people, because you show the five aspects of the brain in a triangle. And maybe I think people are following you very, very well, that we hide the fact that we really think we're unlovable. Many people are drowning in self-hatred. And so it's easier to project onto someone else, you're wrong, because I cannot be wrong. I have to be right.
Right.
And you also mentioned in your book, you mentioned my heroes, Carl Rogers, Carl Jung, John Bradshaw, all my heroes. So the idea of being allowed to love ourselves and not realizing that we don't, that we hate ourselves. Now, connecting ourselves to a higher power, realizing that, as you say, the divine is within us. We can also call it the divine spark.
Mm-hmm.
And that this divine self, this higher self, is connected to all there is, right? Is connected to the source, higher power, God, goddess.
That's right.
There are so many different names for it, and yet people have lost touch with their own divinity.
Absolutely. And then they're defining themselves by their stories. They're defining themselves by how they've been treated or the environment around them, rather than knowing that they're already defined by the time that they were created. The moment we were created, we were defined as divine, magnificent beings created in its image. And so we are magnificent, and that's what we were supposed to be taught as we're being raised. But when you are not taught that, you can easily forget that. And so then you walk around believing your circumstances rather than you creating your own life. And this book is a core of all of the work you do. Okay?
Yes. Vincent Genna, I cannot believe how fast this show has gone.
Oh, my goodness.
I know Vincent Genna, the psychic therapist and medium, author of The Secret That's Holding You Back. And I imagine you can get this online. You can get it in bookstores anywhere. Vincent Genna, Genna, The Secret That's Holding You Back. So the good news, everybody, is Vincent is coming back next week. This is part 1 of a 2-part series. And if you love this show, tell your friends, family about it. And also, it is available on podcast. Thank you, Vincent Genna. So looking forward to part 2 with you. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.